Hello, amigos. Welcome to episode 58 of Nick and Tub. And this one is just Nick and Tub.
I was thinking of some, like, did you just speak Spanish the whole time? Because you said amigos. Whatever. I'm tired. Hello, everyone. It's a great intro.
Got another episode for you on this lovely Monday, or whichever day you're listening.
And it's just us shooting the shit.
Yeah, hope you like it. And cue the music. We're going to kick in this episode now.
Yes!
Welcome to the Nick and Tub
podcast. That was good.
Yep.
Again,
Solid.
I'm always fucking stoked on it.
I want that fucking dumb podcast. I like it.
It's fucking good shit. That was so good.
Dude, this is the best fucking thing we've ever done.
Welcome to our first 8 in the morning podcast. Don't ever want to do this shit again. This shit's rough, dude.
Yeah. I did not get enough sleep.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be real. My alarm went off and I was going to go back to bed. And I just, like, I was right there going back to bed. I was like, what the fuck is calling me? I'm like, oh, it's 7:20. Oh, I have a podcast to do. Yeah, dude, I don't think we've ever done one this early.
Nope. I don't mind it though.
I mean,
like
honestly,
I joke. Like, obviously, I'm dead, but that's because of me being a dumbass and going to sleep at 3 and then waking up at fucking 7 to do it.
Do you think it's shitty to say that 8 o'clock is early when people like you go to work at 5?
I think early is relative. I think sleep is more important. So you can say like, oh fuck, 8 o'clock is so early. But if you went to bed at 3, then yeah, it's early.
Yeah, it's like all your problems. Like, oh, your charger doesn't reach your bed, and there's children starving in Africa. Problems are relative.
Yeah.
If your life is really fucking great, maybe that charger not getting to your bed is just
stressful.
fucking stupid.
No, it's true though. I mean, like, as people, we accommodate to stress, and although it may sound shitty, like, there are a lot of things that people in third world countries go through every day that would torture us.
Yeah.
But to them is no big deal because it's what they know.
Yeah.
And so when they get a big problem of like, oh, like, I don't have a window anymore.
Like, I don't have a window. There's a jaguar outside.
Yeah. And when we get a problem of like, oh, I have to sign into my computer.
Fuck.
Listen, they're both the same level.
Survival on 2 different levels. I forgot my password.
And I don't know which email to send it to.
There's a jaguar outside.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? Belgique? Well, in America, there are some people who forgot their passwords.
Belgique. Nick Rule forgot his password and went, fuck, please, no.
That would be funny if in third world countries they do the same thing we do, but in reverse. So they're like, oh, like, I'm tired of not having a right foot, ma. And he's like, oh yeah, well, some people in America have to sit in the 405, so shut the fuck up. You think you have it so bad?
That's so fucking
Some
stupid.
guy's Tesla didn't charge overnight. While you worry about your problems and your problems only.
Some guy didn't get to work the overtime that he wanted to work to get the extra money on his paycheck that pays for fucking goddamn.
Yeah,
that's so stupid.
Some nice lady in America ordered a dress online and it wasn't the right size. So maybe you can worry about clean drinking
now
water.
She's
got to
get it tailored. You fucking right footless asshole.
Ungrateful.
Ungrateful.
There's some people who have to pay twice what you pay for shoes.
Dude, like, for those listening, Caleb and I were talking about, there's a gym out here called Crunch Fitness, and are there crunches elsewhere?
Yeah, I believe
other
so.
than California?
I have no idea how far they expand, but I believe there's more than the one we have out here.
Oh no, there's definitely one more, or one.
There's definitely
only
one more.
There's
one. It's in Nebraska.
It's
That's the only other crunch.
it's a gym out here, and they sent this fucking. Can I see that pamphlet? I'm not gonna advertise it at all because no free advertising,
No free clout.
But for those of you looking, it's this fucking big. And for those of you that aren't here, it's like, I don't know,
What, like
probably a
14 by 8, 9?
No, it was way bigger than that. This is a
no, it is.
17-inch laptop.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, it's a big ass fucking piece of shit. And you have to take that in if you want to get what they're offering. You have to bring
really?
that thing in. But Caleb and I were talking about how the 3 things that they offer are personal and group training, awesome classes, and the last one Caleb was making fun of.
Oh, because it says fucking miles of cardio. And it has them on stationary bikes and treadmills. Like you're not offering miles of cardio. You're just offering fucking cardio. That's not what you can't determine that you're going to offer miles of cardio.
That's like jogging in place and going, man, running around the block was crazy today.
It's like, no, fucking no.
And so we were talking about, just to go off of the extreme where our brains are going right now, because again, 8 a.m, Jerry is an intern at Crunch Fitness that offered the idea for their last one. Last little tidbit being miles of cardio, and how their boss wouldn't accept that. And they fired Jerry, but the boss went home and realized that miles of cardio wasn't as bad as what he thought. And so he fired Jerry for no reason. And that was the 3rd person that he had fired this week. And his life is just getting really, really hard. And his wife has left and his kids don't speak to him. And we just went.
He says we, but this was me sitting here watching Nick turn my little joke about bad
I'm
advertisement
sorry. Anybody
into
in the
suicide.
conversation, anybody listening to the conversation is part of it.
I contributed nothing past the
That's why
miles of cardio bar.
That's why when you guys listen to this podcast, you have to tell your friends, yes, we all started a podcast.
We all started a podcast.
This is a cult now. I actually really like our name.
Yeah, it's definitely great.
It's there's nothing else like it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Like we almost ended up being Knights of the Round Table.
Mm-hmm.
And although that would have been funny.
Others.
And like, yeah, we had the whole thing of like Knights
Although
in
it's
armor.
like way fucking better than what quality content you guys get.
But like, aside from a theme, it would have sucked.
I don't think it would have
Having-
sucked.
having that name?
I think it would have grown on us, honestly.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess because that's kind of what we thought about this at first.
Yeah, I think I like this one because it sounds like one word.
The Nick and Tub podcast?
Yeah.
The Nick and Tub. Yeah, the Nick and Tub is actually something that does really sound like one word. I'm a fan of it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the topics that I was going to bring up too, I wish I would have written this stuff down, but I didn't, was I realized that I do something by accident, and it was brought to my attention not once, but twice by Brandon Ponchke.
On the podcasts?
Once on the podcast, once in person.
He's a very observant guy.
Brandon?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, the point when
Slow down. We're not going to give him that much credit.
when I bring up what it was, you'll understand.
I break out into screaming every 8 minutes whenever a mic isn't in front of me. I don't know how he picks up on these little things.
On the podcast, there was. Well, I'll talk about the first point. It was me, my cousin Anthony, who was visiting, and he's a photographer as well. And Brandon was in the back seat of my car. Cousin was in the front seat. And as we're driving, Brandon does composite edits, which are the edits where it's like fake stuff gets thrown into photos or like over exaggerated, colors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're really interesting photos for anybody that's listening. Just look up composite edits. Really dope shit. And my cousin has always been more of like a natural shooter from my knowledge, right? And he's never looked down on any type of photography, but he, prefers more like natural stuff and not like tampering with things.
Yeah, with reality.
Again, doesn't dislike it. Just,
Not his thing.
It's not, I don't know. Well, this is where like I'm starting to get into what I said. And so Brandon, I was like, hey, you should show Anthony some of your photography. Before you do though, like just know like he hates composites. Like he doesn't really like them. And my cousin looked at me and he was just like, I don't hate them. And I was like, and I just kind of froze for a second. I was like,
I was like, yes, you fucking do.
but not so much like I didn't mean the word hate.
Mhm.
Like, you know, you tell your friends, oh, I fucking hate you when they make a stupid joke.
Mhm.
Okay. Like you don't actually mean like I hate, like I loathe your existence.
Yeah.
But I kind of like exaggerated a point. Not, and not for the sake of story. It was just like what my brain decided to do there. And so like, obviously just explain like, okay, I didn't mean it that way. And you know, I misspoke. Like, it's just not something that you prefer. And he's just like, no, I mean, I don't have a problem with any of it. And I was like, okay, at this point, I don't even know, because I could have sworn that when we talked about it a long time ago, because I altered colors on a tree once. It was a green, like a whole green shot, and I made it all yellow. And my cousin's like, that's cheating. You can't do that. Mm-hmm. So in my head, like it registered as like, oh, he doesn't like manipulation. hate. But again, not hate like that. And then Brandon was there for that one, obviously. And then the second one was on the podcast last time, we were talking about sex, but I don't remember what we were talking about, or like who we were talking about it with. Yeah, sex.
I think we're talking about jazz, and we were on the instrument of sax. We're talking about sax.
No, we're talking about sleeping around. I just forgot who that was with. It was recent, super recent.
I think Larissa.
Was it? Yes, it was. And so, talking about sleeping around, and I said, Brandon, do you remember what I said about Brandon?
I remember you spoke for him, but I don't remember what you said specifically.
Right. Because like it doesn't, the point that I'll get to my grand point at the end, but I had said like, oh, you know, like you and I don't care about the whole sleeping around thing. A lot of people that we know don't, like, you know, people just do that. But Brandon kind of finds it like appalling. And he just,
yeah.
I used the word appalling, and he sent it to me in a Snapchat. He said, appalling's a bit much. Like, I don't find it appalling. And we had an in-depth conversation where I was like, when I use that word, I don't mean it to its, I don't know.
To its like genuine dictionary degree.
Like, I mean it as a synonym of like dislikes or doesn't prefer.
You don't see like a scale of intensity.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like some of the, obviously I am a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like lively person, and I do exaggerate for sake of comedy. Like that's the whole
yeah.
Like I don't just say, oh, that's the whole fucking point. I say like that's the whole fucking point. Like you give emphasis on things, and I would say I give overemphasized answers to some things,
like hyperbolic answers.
Define that.
Hyperbole. Hyperbole is like exaggeration.
Okay, so yes, but I guess exaggeration almost makes it sound like I'm lying, as it is in my head that I'm just emphasizing for sake of like a punch, essentially. And
that sounds like the same thing to me.
I know. I think this is where my brain gets weird. It's like, I'll use this word thinking that it means this, but then when I hear over exaggeration versus emphasis, I go, well, those are two completely different things.
Yeah.
It's fucking, my brain goes back and forth. So
you got a bunch of SpongeBobs running around.
What I was getting at was like, I have to realize that words that I may use, especially when I'm a person that cares deeply about the way things are said, the words that are used, especially if it's like in a text. It's like you can either attack someone. I can't even use that example because I don't even know where I'm going with that. Basically, for being a grammar Nazi, I tend to use
words recklessly.
Yes. And
so you're big on grammar, but not on vocab. When it comes to what you're anal about.
I think it just depends on like tone and everything else as well. But
you don't mind if a word that is kind of more specifically used for a more extreme case is used casually.
Yes.
So like I said, you're more of a grammar Nazi, but not a vocab Nazi.
Sure. And if that's the case, then yeah, but I just need to work on that period. That was the point that I was going to bring up, was just like, I didn't realize that I did that. And it was like, okay, I can work on that for sure. Cause especially when I'm talking about someone else, I should probably get my words right and not.
Yeah, especially
use-
when you're speaking for them.
Yeah,
Because if you're going to say like, oh yeah, like John, one time John and I got vanilla ice cream and chocolate ice cream and John picked vanilla instead of just being like, yeah, I just don't think he prefers vanilla or just doesn't prefer chocolate ice cream. You'd be like, yeah, I just don't know anyone else other than John who hates chocolate ice cream as much as John does. John's like, what the fuck, bro?
Right. And I think that's where it's like,
And you're like, we got it, and you didn't fucking
when you
pick
give
it.
that comparison, right? I think it depends on how long the thing has sat in my head and how long it's been since I've heard it. Like my cousin hasn't mentioned any of that stuff since the one time we had that conversation 2 years ago.
So then that one time slowly becomes more and more of a caricature in your head rather than the realistic encounter that you had.
And like the conversation that I had with Brandon was more along the lines of a year ago. And we were talking about it in a sense of, so I can clear this up in case anybody even fucking remembers that part of the conversation. It's not something that he prefers. He doesn't give a shit what other people do, but that's just not who he is. Like that's not what he does. He finds sleeping with people to be more, not in like a sacred sense,
Like
but
personal,
a little more special than just kind of like throwing yourself at people. And that's essentially all it was. But in my head, using the word appalled at the time, now when I hear it, obviously.
Appalled is like you just turned the corner and found a body.
Like,
oh my
but that's,
fucking God.
That's not even, and the conversation got a little bit more in depth, and I won't repeat some of the things that him and I said going back and forth with like having an understanding, but he was like, it can potentially paint you in a light where someone goes, well, I don't want to like be around that person or talk to that person if they find it appalling. Like, I don't want them to think that I'm gross. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I didn't even think about it. Like, I don't go that far. Like, if I tell somebody, like, oh, I fucking hate you while laughing, I don't think I'm gonna fucking hate you.
Yeah, but it paints a judgmental tone on someone without even realizing that you're doing it for them because you know how they are and you know the context in which the conversation was had and you know that they're not being judgmental.
Yeah.
But when you summarize an entire in-depth conversation and an entire like thought out opinion in one sentence, it could come off that way.
Especially because this all started coming to light within the past 2 weeks because I was talking to Larissa and she had just kind of brought up a point of it's not necessarily that I was talking bad about people. I just didn't have anything good to report. Like for some reason in the past 2 weeks, it was like one thing after another of no one really giving me something positive to talk about. And so like I would just fill her in on stuff and it like just sounded like I had nothing good to say about them. And I realized it's not that I have nothing good to say about them. It's that in the past 2 weeks,
they suck. That's what it is.
It's not that they suck. It was more of like, for example, and I'll just use this one example. I don't need to go into every single one. My parents, my dad and my stepmom, love them to death. Great people. They live in a different state now. And just, they don't necessarily always have something good to report on. So like they'll ask me how my life is. I'm like, it's great. Like things are going great. This is that, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll ask them and they'll tell me about the things that have been happening to them that weren't so positive just because like nothing really positive has happened. So in my head now, the more recent information that I have on them is not in a good light. So I can't really report on like, yeah, no, they're doing great if they're not doing great. And it was that way with almost every single person at the time that I was talking about. So it just seemed like I was doing nothing but reporting bad stuff. And I'm like, I guess I should just stop talking about it. Like, I don't really know. Like they just weren't, I don't know. There's nothing good to report. I have to just start learning. I don't need to say everything and be so goddamn transparent about everything that's going on in my head.
I don't think as much as it is that as it is. And now I'm getting into the range of speaking for her, but maybe just like
Shit. It's probably really loud.
looking for a silver lining on top of it. Just being like, because people, although,
God damn it, I'm so
damn,
sorry,
bro,
guys.
you want to jump the mic?
Yeah, fuck.
But like people, no matter what kind of adversity they face, normally will be able to find a positive perspective. And I think like when you just are reporting on like the negative things you've heard, because that's what you've heard recently, it leaves out that positive perspective that they may or may not be putting at the end of that entire thing in order to not make their life seem miserable.
Yeah.
So like I have my gripes currently, but I still like love living and love the people in my life and love a bunch of stuff. And so like I would never consider my life as a whole as miserable, just like going through a not so fun part.
Yeah.
And like if someone were to be like, oh, how's Caleb? And you, or how's Caleb been recently? You can be like, oh, like, you know, well, he said this, and this. And we're like, damn, sounds like he ain't having that too good of a time. And you could be like, well, overall, he's still this person. He still loves these things. He still like is grateful for every day he wakes up. And then it sounds like a more balanced middle ground.
I think there is that, so you can do that extra. Well, it's not extra work, but I'm just saying, like, you can add in those extra parts if you're thinking about it at the time. I think it would also just help if like people reported on their lives. For example, like I can tell you, like, oh, I'm tired and I'm stressed.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Just say that. Or you can be like, I'm tired, I'm stressed, but like I'm still working it out. Like things are gonna go fine. It's just a matter of like getting through it.
Mm-hmm.
Positive way of looking at it. Like it's just it's a change up in how it's reported. It's like updating somebody rather than all in a negative light. It's like with a positive twist or like a neutral
with
fucking twist would do it.
Silver lining.
But when it's just like wah 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 and it's all negative out of your mouth, it's like you don't have to just report on that. You can say like, dude, at one point when I was in a negative headspace, and even still when I get in that headspace, I'm like, well, I'm alive. Like I'll literally just think I'm alive.
Exactly.
Like, I could
always,
be suffering.
I always think back to Sam Harris's quote where he said, you could be on your deathbed and the only thing, and he's like, and you would wish more than anything to be back in that frustrating fight with your significant other, in that 405 traffic, in that time where you had an injury, because you were still alive, you were still living, you still had life ahead of you.
Yeah.
And he's like, no matter what, no matter how miserable you think you are right now, no matter in what kind of position you find yourself, you could, if you were on your deathbed, you would instantly in a minute snap and put yourself back where you are now. So you better like try and put it in perspective so that you don't let it get to you.
Yeah. I mean, to just summarize before getting into like those points, because we'll probably eventually branch off on that. I'm just saying like it's just stuff that I need to work on with myself. It was something that like wasn't apparent to me and now is. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's something that I can actually like work around.
I think it's very easy to fall into the trap of like slight inflation of whatever you're talking about, like a slight exaggeration or a slight punch for emphasis, because you want, when you're talking to somebody, for your words to resonate with them the same way it resonated with you.
Right.
And so someone may have said a thing or held an opinion or done something, and the way that you experienced it when you were with that person resonated a certain way.
At a
and you were
higher
like,
level.
yeah, and you were like, I need to replicate that when I'm telling this person about what I just experienced, in order for them to experience, to understand on the same level as me, because they're not there for it, so they won't get the same experience. And I realized that like, and also there are instances where you can do it to impress, like it's the whole like fish this big thing.
Yeah.
And it's very, very easy to like add maybe one extra push up to what you did at the gym, or one extra inch to your dick, or whatever you want to fucking put it on.
It's a lot.
And it's a lot. And no one will, and it's in this gray area, because if you don't exaggerate at all, no one's going to notice nor care. If you exaggerate too much, people are going to be like, all right, calm down. But there's a gray area in between that I've noticed where a lot of people live, where you can fit a little bit of exaggeration in, to where it would be almost socially awkward to check you on that. And it would be kind of too much time and a waste of effort. And so people can get away with it.
Yeah.
And so being like, okay, rather than like, dude, I was at work for like 9 hours and 45 minutes. People are like, I was at work for 10 hours. And then if someone's like, well, I mean, you were only there for 9 hours and 45 minutes, you'd be like, why the fuck does that matter to you, bro? Like, why is that a big deal?
Yeah.
But in reality, objectively, you are exaggerating just in order to make the conversation smoother, to make your like achievement seem more rounded, whatever it is.
It just depends on that exaggeration.
Yeah. And I've been around people who have like not only done that, but like almost fallen into like a slippery slope of that, where like they keep kind of like pushing the envelope of like how much exaggeration they can get away with, until, and it's a gradient over time, but until they get to this point where everything they do is like the most intense thing they've ever done. Everything they've seen is like the best thing or the worst thing they've ever seen. Like it's just like everything is at like volume cranked up to 10 at all times. And and when you're around that, you get to this point where you're like, I don't believe you.
I know one example that we're both on the same page with.
Yeah. And you're like, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I don't think that this thing is like a landmark in your life, like you're saying it was, because this thing that we're talking about is nothing special, nothing crazy. It's just another, like,
it's just another form of chicken nuggets.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
It's just like another burger shop, or it's just like another car. It's like, this doesn't have to be like the best car you've ever driven. It can just be a good car, and you can still have a conversation that can resonate with others and impress, and so on and so forth. You don't need to shave orange zest onto every topic that you're talking about.
Like,
it takes away from the things that are actually extremes. It's like the boy who cried wolf.
Right.
The day you finally experience something that is truly life-changing, that is truly like a revelation, what words do you have left in your arsenal to describe that properly when you use them all on ordinary things?
Yeah. Like, that's why you don't want to like overuse compliments or overuse, appreciation for people, or whatever the case may be. But I think people have different forms, and the only other form that I can think of when it comes to like telling a story is, everybody knows these people. I have multiple people in my life. I can name 2 off the top of my head that are like this, but they repeat their story for emphasis. Repeat it again.
They repeat the punchline, or they repeat the whole story?
Like, not the whole story, and not necessarily the punchline, but just enough of it where they'll just be like, yeah, I was standing there and then like the light blew out. And I was just thinking, like, it's just fucking crazy, because I was like, I was just standing there and the light blew out. And it was just like, I heard you the first time. And I know people that do it 3 or 4 times, and I'll look at them and be like, tell me again how the light blew out. And they'll laugh, and they'll just be like, don't be an asshole. And I'm just like, no, it's fine. Like, I understood. I even tell them, like, I like when you do that.
Don't be an asshole. Don't be a jester. Get your fucking story straight.
No, right. But it's just, it's interesting how different people can communicate their stories just to make sure their emphasis is hit correctly.
I find it so fascinating when you go through the same experience with another person. Say
And
like you
two
both went through a car
completely-
crash,
Yeah.
and like say in this example, you described the car crash much more accurately to the reality of what it was.
Mm.
But then your friend comes along and they're just like, yeah, we were going 95 and we got T-boned.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Nah, dude,
first of all, how?
we were going 60 and rear-ended someone.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And it's just like, and it just fucked their car up, and like the fender just has scraped paint and some dents.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and like homeboy had a whiplash for 2 weeks when his neck bothered him for 3 days.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't get checked the first time, then that is the story from now on.
Yeah.
And not only is that the story, but then you get to exaggerate that story a little bit.
Yeah. See, there's
So it's like, what were you had whiplash for like what, a month? Like, and it's like, bro,
you have to oh shit. Oh my god.
stretch it out.
Oh fuck, I forgot what my point was gonna be. No.
What?
Damn. I had to do something with like the exaggeration and people explaining stories and whatnot.
But yeah, I'll continue down that
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
and if it resurfaces, and you're almost put in an awkward social situation because you go like, do you right now, as your friend is with you explaining to someone who wasn't there how this
know what
event
it was.
goes, do you check them? Do you stop them in their tracks and be like, all right, it wasn't that extreme?
Yeah.
And do you like slightly temporarily embarrass your friend in
Yeah.
front of others,
Or you just let it
or
roll.
do you just let it go?
It's funny because
And then do you have when they ask you, are you going to play along with that for the sake of social cohesion?
Yeah.
Or are you going to kind of put a stick in the spokes and be like, I
Social
didn't see it the same
cohesion.
way.
I actually just had this conversation with someone. I'm not going to name drop people because then it will cause problems. But it was just like person A knows that person B exaggerated stories extremely and will like add parts that didn't even happen.
Really?
And then person C was just like, yeah, I've been around and in a situation with person B. And then when person B was explaining it, person C was like, that's not, I'll just let it go. Like literally
Yeah.
that exact situation, like what you just talked about. I
Mhm.
recently had a conversation with someone about that. But what the point was that I was going to get at was, for example, people when they explain their sex stories. There was one guy that just went through my
Dude,
head
oh my God.
when this.
I just got kind of an awakening.
You just got a boner thinking about the sex story.
I just got feedback from a friend about people that I know
Yeah,
and did not match up with what people said.
yeah, and
it's so good.
You're like, and it's you. And so that's why I give like a preface on things, and I overdo it to the point where my brother Matt, I went and saw him recently, and we were just talking, and he was like, dude, just fucking spit it out. And I'm like, no, I have to give preface because what I'm about to say, you either won't believe or think I'm exaggerating. So I have to tell you that like, I'm not exaggerating. And what I'm going to bring up may catch you off guard. Like I'll say things.
Is this
like,
you describing a sex story?
yes.
I know exactly what you're talking
Well,
about.
I mean, we were talking about sex stories, but
You're going off personal experience that you had.
It might have been something else right before that. It doesn't matter what my point was with him, but what I was getting at with sex stories, like sex stories are the dudes that are like, yeah, bro, like we were fucking. The second they go, yeah, bro, I'm like, lying. Because for me, like one of my favorite fucking sex stories ever, one of my biggest like quote unquote accomplishments.
Yeah.
Because it's
No,
it was
I know
funny.
What it is.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Anybody that knows my sex background knows that one story. But that one, when I tell people, I'm like I'm not bullshitting you. Like this is not.
Mhm.
I don't give
You're like,
a
unless
fuck.
I got lied to.
Like, dude, I used to, and everybody listening, enjoy this. I used to finish in like 10 seconds for years. Like for like 5 or 6 years, it was like a fucking curse. I was like, so really, what do I have to make up for? I used to literally tell people like, yeah, this is about to happen. Sorry. Like,
That's so sad.
it got to a point where I just accepted it. But, like, what do I have to lose? Like, I was at the bottom.
Yeah, I was about to
of
say
the
there
chain.
ain't much
like you can't get much worse than that. So
Yeah.
I'm not just going to go and exaggerate this story for this. Like
There's
this is what
there's
happened.
nothing to exaggerate.
And I'll say all of those things before I tell a story because of the people who will say something, and that person, for example, when I hear, yeah, bro, I was laying the pipe. Okay, already I have tuned out because
all right. I want to put out a PSA.
I can still hear you talk your tone, but I'm gonna warm up my coffee.
Okay, so I'm going to put out a little PSA for all the guys out there that have sex. I'm going to let you know right now. Not
for the ones who don't have sex.
No, this doesn't apply to you. Virgins. If
Incels.
incels. you know the Intel icon. I have one that says it's a meme. It says "Okay, incels," and it's like that. It's so good. Okay, sorry. So yeah, PSA for all the guys out there that are quote unquote laying it down. We're friends with the girls you fuck.
Yeah, we are.
We know the girls you have sex with. And so you, for your own goddamn sake, better say the same story she's going to say.
Because you learned something recently.
Well,
where
I'm
you
just saying, I'm just
learned
going over the course of the years of me hearing it from the bros of like,
from the bros.
of just like, yeah, dude, I blew her fucking back out. And it's like, I talked to her first. No, the fuck you didn't. But
said you-
no guy's going to sit here and let whoever's on their little anthill get knocked down while they're having their 15 minutes of fame around the homeboys and bragging about their sex encounter. But it's like, I have had multiple occasions throughout my life where a friend of mine is telling me about some sex they had, and I've either already talked to the girl or I didn't know I'm going to be conversating with the girl later. Conversing, my bad. And she is going to tell me the truth. And so you either going to look like a dumbass who's insecure about what they actually do in the bedroom, or you're actually a champ and good for you. But everyone's a champ when it comes to guys. Every guy is good at what they do. Every dude has better strokes than A$AP Rocky. And so, and so y'all have nothing to worry about, right? If you're so good at it, then it shouldn't be a problem. But time and time again, I've heard out of all of the encounters I hear about maybe 2 guys or 2 encounters where the guy was talking a lot of shit about how good they did. And then you ask the girl and she was like, he did amazing. It was crazy. He's really like, he's good. Then it's like, oh shit, good for him. It is not the majority.
Interesting.
It is not the majority.
Have you ever talked to any of the girls that I've had sex with?
No.
Just before like we keep going on this conversation, this is one thing that you and I haven't talked about on the podcast, but we've talked about in person and maybe know a few people that enjoy this as much as we do. You and I love talking about this shit. Love it. Love talking about sex stories. Love talking about like sex backgrounds, people's preferences. Like it's not even like a bragging thing. There were, for those listening, there was a time that Caleb and I think for 2 hours sat in my living room at the apartment. We're just fucking laughing, sharing stories and all this. And it's not to cause a scene because literally no one was there but us. It's not bragging rights. It's literally just, dude, you'll never believe like this kind of thing happened or blah, blah, blah.
Well, sex is one of the main pillars of life. Like it is one of the biggest things in existence that people
if that's what you're doing
prioritize.
It for, but
well, I'm saying like it's such a huge deal all the time that like sharing stories of it is like just a blast.
I know a lot of people that aren't into it. And I also know a lot of people that will probably listen to this and think like, oh, they're just talking about it to look cool, or they're talking about it for like exaggeration purposes or for comedy. No, literally this is just what we do. So why I ask about the whole can I bring up a fun fact about you and me, or should we not?
Go for it.
That we've had sex with 3 of the same girls. The reason why I asked that was because like there were times where I would call you and be like, dude, like blah 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 about this person. You're just like, yeah, I told you. And like
I would give a Yelp review and Nick would go on it.
Dude, there are probably some people that are just like, what the fuck, dude?
Oh yeah, no, it was over the course of a long time span.
How
but
was it though?
I feel like it
'Cause-
was.
Well, not when I was having,
Oh,
when I
wait.
went on that spree. That was like in the
Okay,
span
yeah.
of like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That was one of the few instances. Okay, so all the time guys joke about like, oh, bro, you got so many hoes. Lob some this way, right? Lob some hoes this way. That was one of the few instances where I was actually like, what? And it actually carried out. That shit was fucking funny.
Oh man, there was yeah, it was a wild time in my life. Like I realized not only as I get older, but as like my interests change, that's not something I really care about anymore. The whole like sleeping around thing, genuinely.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, it was fun, but I think I was just making up for lost time. Which I mean, the 5 or 6 year curse.
You finally break that 10-second barrier and you're like, oh, you hoes are not ready.
That's not even a joke. Like, that's literally how it happened. It was just like,
It was like King Arthur unsheathing the sword for the first time. He's
It
pulling
was-
out a stone. And you're like, I'm going to use this.
like for people listening, when I am not over exaggerating this. I had slept with. It's gonna sound so gross to some people. I don't give a fuck, dude. I talked about my childhood. Fuck yourself.
I was smacking my dick against a shower wall. Y'all are going to hear it all.
I slept with 9 people in 4 months, and there were times where I was sleeping with like 3 different people. Granted, all protected, all safe.
Thank you, Allstate.
And it was just like 3 different people in a week, just making up for like lost time because my body was just like, oh shit, this is what you could have been doing the past 5 or 6 years. Go for it.
Yeah.
And now, like,
And it's
look-
crazy that you didn't even get to finish that out. You just got stopped dead in the middle of it.
yeah. But that's, I think, I was talking about that with Brandon, and that's where Brandon was just like, ugh. Like, it wasn't even that he was disgusted with me. He just went like, yeah, that's just not me. Like, I couldn't do that. I would never do that. That's just not his thing. And I think that's where his, like, maybe a small reaction, maybe his fucking face turned a certain way when I was talking about it. He was,
yeah, you're for sure appalled.
he was doing that at me just because we're friends, not at the situation. That's probably what it was, and why the exaggeration was so big in my head. But yeah, the main point that I was getting at was just like, I try to give like a preface, and I genuinely don't ever lie. I do exaggerate words though for 100%. Like, I've never added in something in a story. I don't think I could add something in a story that didn't happen.
I think lying to that extent, unless it's literally for a certain like reason, like you're actually genuinely trying to manipulate somebody, or you're like trying to keep a surprise hidden or keep a part of you in the closet or something, like, then yeah, but it's so hard to keep up with a web of lies once you start threading it.
Oh yeah.
It's so fucking hard. And I think the easiest way that people lie is without realizing it. I think it's let me convince myself that this thing wasn't the way it was. And then once you believe it, then you're no longer lying.
Yeah.
Quote unquote lying. When in reality, a lot of times I've run into situations where I'm talking to somebody and I notice something that I would consider like untrue, but I wouldn't consider it like a blatant fib.
Yeah.
And I realized very quickly that the reason that they're inaccurately portraying said thing isn't because they know better and they're trying to like fool me. It's because they fooled themselves.
Yeah.
And they now no longer feel as if they are lying. This is now the truth to them. And so this is what they're going to tell you. And if you're ever in a situation where you're with somebody like that, you can't just call their bluff, because it's not a bluff to them anymore.
Right.
You would have to then convince them that they had it wrong.
Yeah.
which is very hard to do, especially when they originally had incentive to believe it to be a different way because they didn't like the way it was the first way.
Yeah.
So they're not believing it on good grounds. So convincing somebody to change their opinion on something they didn't have valid reasons for even having an opinion on in the first place is like backing into a brick
That's
wall.
where you just look at their phone and be like, is that true? And the FBI agent will be like, no, not at all. That's not how
No,
it
that's not at
happened.
all.
I was there. I was listening.
Dude, I can call up the girl right now and ask
Yeah.
if this is what happened.
Yeah. Fucking weird. I don't understand. I don't understand lying.
I think it's really crazy. Like growing up as a kid, I always would hear from older people who are more wise and more mature, like, wow, that
Quote
person's
unquote.
well, no, legitimately people who are
okay.
older and more mature and more wiser. They would always root a lot of things down to like insecurities. And I was like, as a kid, I couldn't see it. I couldn't grasp how like this aggressive behavior or this manipulative behavior came from not like a selfish like scramble for more as much as it came from a desperate panic to make up for. And now growing up and finally seeing the world through an adult lens, holy shit, they're right. So many things that people do when it comes to lying or cheating or being selfish or rude, so many things root down to insecurity, root down to a lack of self-esteem, a lack of true identity, a lack of a foundation. Like so many things root down to that because I know for a fact if there's a problem that somebody has and it's genuinely something that they would be a better person if they didn't have it, I know that if I just like think like, okay, if this person had better self-esteem or a higher confidence level, that problem would have been gone.
Yeah.
They wouldn't exaggerate as much. They wouldn't lie. They wouldn't feel the need to steal.
Right.
A lot of it comes down to insecurity. And it's so...
It's just like bullies bully until they learn how to fight and how to have confidence. Like the whole thing of put a bully in a fighting class, people are like, why would you do that? Because they just lack confidence in themselves. And if you put them in a fighting class, they're not going to use the fighting to bully kids more. They're actually going to build confidence within themselves to actually gain an identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's wild. People don't really see on the surface how many of their problems actually have these roots underneath that go undetected that all trail back to insecurity. And if they spent their time, rather than trying to like cut off the head of each dragon that's popping up, if they spent their time just focusing at the heart of it, at themselves, getting better, really being honest with themselves on why they're scared of these things or fearful of being seen in a certain light, and get over that, you quickly watch a lot of problems you didn't realize were correlated melt away.
Right.
And it's why it's much more efficient to kind of work on self-improvement than it is to...
Oh, dude, I'd much rather just push it to the side.
Yeah, than it is to leave it for later, because then it'll just slowly soak into your day-to-day.
I'm so tired of that shit. I'm so tired of it. I'm tired of like people not being self-aware and just and if they quote, oh, I am self-aware. No, you're not. No, you're not. Because if I tell you that there's a problem and you go, no, or I tell you that there's a problem and you go, well, that's just who I am, or whatever the fuck. Like, for example, I was talking to Patrick yesterday and Ethan, Tim. And I was just explaining to them like different things that I was thinking in my head and all this sorts of, I don't fucking know. Can't really like get into detail about it, but they were explaining to me like, this is what you need to do. You need to put yourself on a schedule. You need to do this, you need to do that. And I was telling them like, well, that doesn't work for me. And they, although I may have been communicating it improperly, they were like, well, you just keep shooting down our ideas. So like, we don't know what the fuck you want us to even tell you. And I took a step back and realized, okay, I may have been communicating that improperly. I wasn't telling you no to any idea you had. I was just telling you like that one doesn't work for me. Do you have something else? Was what I meant. Not like, I'm just going to keep shooting down your ideas, because I have like that self-awareness where as I'm saying something, I can pull myself back and be like, you know what? I may be incorrect in this point.
Mm-hmm.
So let me rephrase it. Let me take a step back. Let me restate that, you know, I am coming to you for help. It's just some of the things that you may be throwing my way aren't working for me in that moment. Do you have anything else that you can give? Versus some people, it's just like you'll bring up a problem and something that is an actual problem, not like saying, oh, you have a problem because I don't accept it. It's like, oh, you have X, Y, and Z as an insecurity and you're just using anger to get through it. That's not healthy. They'll be like, oh, it's just how I am. That's how I deal with it. That's not healthy. There's like facts and opinion is what I'm basically getting at. Like if you shut down and push people out when you get upset about something rather than talking about it, that is unhealthy. That is not a way to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, that's not just on the list of things of this is how you can deal with life. That's not on there.
It's in
a healthy way. That's not on there.
There are certain phrases that grind my gears, and one of them is, well, that's just how I am. And it's like, nothing about you is static. Nothing about you is permanent.
Yeah.
Everything about who you are, to your identity, to your core, can be changed, whether you want it to change or not. You can go through a certain experience. You can realize a certain thing, have a certain epiphany. You can meet a certain person, and that one thing that you swore was you can change.
Mm-hmm.
And some people like to act like they are a cartoon character in a TV show, and that they have certain qualities about them and traits and attributes listed, and that's who they are, and that's who they always will be. And if you don't like it, then take a hike. And people like to almost romanticize problems that they have by putting it in the light of, well, that's just how I am. Like, that's just a part of me that I've come to accept.
And you just need to accept it too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, you're not turning your like flaws into like something that's supposed to be quirky about you doesn't work in the real world. It's not like a Hallmark movie where someone's like, yeah, like, you know, they're overbearing, but it's just because they love too much. And that's just who they are. And I love them the way they are. And then the movie ends, and then everything ends. It doesn't, like, you don't get to see the 48-hour version or the 3-month version or the 2-year version where suddenly that trait that you're that flaw they have that you're trying to paint as quirky, or they're trying to paint as quirky, is unbearable because your tolerance wears down over time. And so, like, life doesn't work like the way it does on the TV screen. You can't just paint your problems as quirks and then hope that people will just accept them as this like cute little thing that I just suck at. It's like, no, like you can't just like adorably suck at communication. It doesn't work that way. We're adults. It's the real world. If you have a problem, you have to go and communicate it with whoever you have that problem with.
Yeah.
And so when people are like, well, that's just the way I am. No, you just don't want to deal with it. Yeah. You see that mountain you have to climb and you go, fuck that. It's just a part of my scenery. Yeah. No, it's not. It's a problem.
Right.
And you have to deal with it, or it will eventually hinder your progress in life. It will bleed into your relationships you have. It will bleed into your self-confidence. It will bleed into the interactions you have with strangers. People will notice this about you, and you can chime all day you want, however much you want, about how it's not an issue. It's just who you are. But at the end of the day, to everybody else, it's an issue. So at what point is it not?
And granted, to some extent, there are things that you may have people in your life, like 6 different people that don't like that thing about you, right? Like you don't have to do things. I wish there was like a list a list of like right and wrong ways to deal with life, or and there's like variables to it and whatnot, because everything is by preference of what somebody else likes. Like you and I like communication. You and I like stating things when there's an actual problem and like talking through it and actually like getting over it in the proper way versus just letting it roll off our backs.
Mm-hmm.
Versus some people function better when they just let things roll off their back and literally don't deal with it.
Yeah, I think that to quote this guy I do a podcast with, it's a case per case basis.
Fuck you. But thank you.
It's one of those things where like I find myself in situations where I have an issue and I know for a fact all I need is just a little alone time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the more significant problems will majority more than not, lean towards communication is going to solve this.
Yeah.
Because people like to say that things roll down their back, but it rolls down their back and then it gets stuck in their ass and then it never leaves.
I mean, one of the problems, like, for example, that like I'm typically a busy person. I have things that I need to do back to back to back just because like that's how I need to function. My best days are when it's like, okay, from like 2 to 3:30, I have to go do this shoot. And then when I get home at 4, like it's back to back.
Batching everything, like
And and having it properly lay out.
like saturating your day.
Love those days.
I do too. That's like my Mondays.
Versus some people will literally
Slow
tell
burn it
me
throughout the week.
Well, no, they'll tell me like, well, you don't need to be that busy, or like you need to make time for this, or no, I don't. Like it may not work for you, but that's what works for me, and it's my life, and like that's what I was saying of
Yeah. Well, yeah. There are certain methods to maneuvering through life that work differently for different people.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying is like that's why I said I wish there was a list.
Mm-hmm. But objectively, there are certain habits that are bad, and objectively, there are certain habits that are good.
But it's just in some people's heads, dude. Like they could end up finding 7 other people that enable them to do that bad thing, and then eventually that's objectively in their life and how they see it good. Where it's like 7 people see it as good, and then like 7,000 are like, no, that's
well, that's
bad.
that's just an echo chamber at that point,
right?
It's just
and
a
that's what I'm
closed
saying
off
is
space.
like it depends on who you surround yourself with and how you view life and
Yeah.
how you go about things. Like my anger, for example, back then, like how I used to take out my fucking anger, which was just the most unhealthy thing, was like, let's go punch shit.
Yeah.
No, and by punch shit, I don't mean people or living things. I mean like inanimate objects, like a toolbox,
dead bodies.
like like a toolbox or like a fucking door or a wall.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, legitimately, I was like, okay, when I'm angry, as long as I inflict pain on my fucking knuckles, the pain or the anger will leave. Thought that was the only way my brain could work through it until I got in my 20s and I was like, no, all you have to do is just fucking breathe.
Yeah.
And hey, look, the problems go away and go vent, go talk to somebody. Easy. You're not taking it out on anybody. You're not taking it out on anything. You're just talking out loud. Someone's telling you, you know what? Yeah, that does suck. You just need validation in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just need someone to go like, yeah, I get it. And you go, and that's it. And then you're good. Like that's what I was saying is it's sometimes so deeply ingrained in your head, and depending on who you are and how much you work on yourself and how open you are to change, can completely like change your life, change your perspective on certain things.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are like one good problem being solved away from realizing how like important communication is when it comes to dealing with your own shit. I think a lot of people are either too scared or too embarrassed or don't want to hash out a problem that they think is bottled up and stored away. And they just kind of need to bite the bullet, swallow their pride, and for once let themselves look bad, look like embarrass themselves, be vulnerable, and go through that entire process of essentially what it is amateur therapy. And have their eyes opened to how how well it works, how successful it really is. And you kind of get that, oh, this played out way different than my brain told me it was going to. This works much better than a toolbox.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it this way now. And once you get it that way, not only will you be better equipped to deal with future problems, but you now have this new tool that you finally understand works better, and you can use that to go back through your old past problems too. And like an analogy, for instance, like I'll bring Danny up as an example, and I won't do it in a negative way, but just to show how she's grown with our relationship over the past soon to be 3 years. Is she used to not want to communicate her problems. She, to speak for her a little, and she can correct me if she wants to, and I'll clear the air later.
She's
like, oh God.
At the radio.
She's like, oh God, here we go.
Fuck yeah.
I believe she saw it as not only like better, but almost as like tougher to deal with the problems by yourself, not include anybody else, just kind of handle them alone and then let them pass. And whether that be not wanting to burden others with talking about the issue, or not wanting to come off as weak because you require others to help you with your issue. But I explained to her very early on in our relationship, when I saw that this was like the way that she was like, nah, dude, that's just like, that's what I do. I just like bottle them up and I let it fade, and then it goes away.
Right.
And I tried explaining to her, I was like, if you have an issue and you treat your persona, your psyche, your brain is like a house, it's like a hole in the floor. And just letting the feelings fade and then never talking about it again is like putting a rug over the hole. You no longer have that hole in you don't think about it, you don't see it, but it will always be there. And no matter how clean the rug looks, no matter how expensive a rug you put over it, you can always step right back in that hole again. And the only way to get rid of it is the harder decision, the harder choice, the harder path of getting on your hands and knees and repairing the hole in the floorboards, actually nailing down new wood and patching up the problem. And that requires, when it correlates to the real world, talking about your problems.
You do know you're like the Confucius of metaphors, right? The amount that you have sometimes, like you've told me that one before, but like I realize, and now that I point this out, I probably like broke the fourth wall for some people. Or
I love analogies.
Yeah. Analogies, metaphors, similes, like all those different things. You're like the fucking king of them.
I
wish I could go through the episodes and just like make a fucking
cherry pick
collage
them.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
We'll pay somebody to do that one day.
One day. I think of how it makes sense in my brain, and then think of how I can illustrate it in like pictures rather than words.
Yeah,
and it's much easier.
Like I'll get halfway through one
through
and go, oh wait, that doesn't work, and then I'll just stop. Whereas like yours are just always from start to finish, you're like right on top of it.
Well, I appreciate that. But yeah, and like to close out the point, I would tell her, I was like, dude, like you can't keep putting rugs over your problems. Like you can't. You have to like patch them up. And I know it's more hard work. I know it like sucks because you then have to admit that the hole's still there. But like and this goes to anybody, like when you have a problem and you just bottle it up and store it away, it's not contained. It's not isolated. That problem will leak out, and you will, and the problem comes to be a lot of the times people forget about how many issues that they have bottled up and stored away, but their brain doesn't.
Yeah.
It'll still leak out and affect how they see the world, how they interact with others, how they react to things.
Yeah.
And if you don't assess that problem when it happens, even though it's harder to do than just ignoring it, then it'll be hard to remember where this problem is even rooting to.
Yeah.
It'll be hard for you to like backtrack and go, okay, like why don't I trust people? Why do I have this opinion that more people suck than are good? And you have to, go back through your like harsher memories and make yourself remember, oh yeah, this one time where it really sucked. I got fucked over.
Yeah.
I let that be a defining moment.
Right.
And so now to Danny's credit, because I don't want to just leave her hanging and say like, oh yeah, she has gotten much, much, much better at it.
Yeah.
And I truly think it's because after like going through the first couple times of really like kind of like forcing yourself to communicate a problem when you really don't want to, when it sounds so much easier to just like swallow it and forget about it.
Yeah.
After the first couple times, she like kind of saw like how the closure worked and how that problem not only was gone just like how it's gone when you forget about it, but it's actually gone. It's not going to come back and bite you.
Yeah.
She's like way better at it now, and like when an issue pops up, we will actually talk about it and we will hash it out and cut it out at the root, and then that problem's gone. Like a lot of our relationship is so much smooth sailing now because her and I have dealt with problems until there's no root left for the weed to grow back.
The whole metaphor or analogy of the rug and holes is the same thing as like sweeping it under the rug. Like eventually you're going to move that rug and see that you still have to clean up that whole mess.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to like drastically change subject, but especially being in the mornings when my voice is like this fucking just skippy, raspy, reminded me that I went to practice 2 weeks ago to record a song and learned something new about vocal cords and how they're not just internal, they're also like not on the skin, but like right underneath the skin. I was very, very close to blowing out my vocal cords for the next 3 days after that practice, which was really weird because it was like an hour long. Anytime I did anything than this voice, like if I tried to even hit any type of like that, felt like someone had their hands on the muscles and on the insides of my esophagus and just were squeezing. I was like, what the fuck is that? And so
panic.
I looked it up, and it was just like, oh, you can stress your vocal cords like you would stress a muscle, like you work out too hard. And then I went to practice this past week, and the same thing happened the next day, except it didn't last as long. And it was just like voice is a little shot. And it's learning more about my voice and the different things, but mostly what I'm getting at is I wonder what my voice is going to sound like in a year of doing this band as it is now, and like if it's going to get worse, if my voice is going to drastically change, if I'm just going to eventually sound like this all the time. Like that would be terrible. But yeah, it's just been going through my head a lot. Like as I was talking, I'm like, fuck, it's so low and just not evil, but not at my normal tone. Granted, it's now 9 a.m. So it's a little different. But anyway, that's just what was going through my head. Like there are some times, dude, where I really, I've brought this up before. Side note, anybody that's listening, for those of you that are listening, any noises that you hear in the background are just a roommate in the kitchen. But what I was going to say about me and how my brain works is like, as you were talking about Danny and all those different things, I heard the story, but all that kept going on in my head over and over, so I didn't forget my point, was just seeing a broom sweeping dust under a rug over and over, and then it would switch over to talk about your voice, and then it was rug and dust, your voice, rug and dust, and I'm just like, oh my god, I just want to fucking yell it, because like it will literally repeat, and I can see it almost like it's happening in front of me.
There's actually
bothersome.
Funny about that, and I'm gonna quote this, and please, somebody out there fact check me and prove me wrong, because this is
I have a laptop.
Old information. Why? Yeah, true. And I don't know how well it'll be for you how easy it'll be for you to find it. But but if I'm correct, and I'm going to throw out arbitrary numbers here just to give a little perspective, but
Okay.
there was a study done when it came to men and women, and it was talking about how like women are better listeners than men are.
Uh-huh.
And the study conducted that because, or came to that conclusion because it found that men typically like stop listening after, I think it was like 4 or 5 seconds of you getting to your point, because they already know what they're going to say back, and they're waiting for you to finish so that they can say what they're going to say,
Interesting.
so that they can bring up their point. Whereas women like stop, I think like 10 seconds after. So like over double the time. So they actually soak in what you're getting at and then go, okay, now I know what I'm going to say. But like guys, you'll say like, oh yeah, so I was doing this, this, and that at the movies. And when we saw the new Star Wars, and you're like, I already know what I'm going to say next
About Star Wars.
about Star Wars.
Yeah.
And you just kind of sit there and make and cling onto your thought so you don't forget it, and wait for them to shut up so you can talk.
I think that's why I want to get like a pen and paper for everyone that's sitting at the table. So you and me, so I can just do this and then I can let it go, because it's not so much.
I would cover that motherfucking paper. I think of points I want to bring up while I'm talking, and I think of like 3 at once.
Yeah. And so,
and then they go,
I think obviously that those are averages, and everybody is vastly different. Some guys are probably like 1 or 2 seconds. In fact, I'm pretty sure everybody knows somebody that's 1 or 2 seconds.
Everybody knows like a meathead that's like, as soon as they hear the main word in your point, clocked out, done.
Yeah. Which is
Shut
where
up so I can talk.
I think you and I excel, especially having a podcast where not only we do this with each other, but we do this with other people, where we listen far longer than probably the average guy or average person in general.
The average guy sets such a low standard in so many fields for
So
for
that's
men.
why I said the average person,
Yeah.
just to change it up. But
For me, it depends on the day. There are some
that's
days.
a fun little statistic, though.
Yeah, and it's like kind of in my head, and I take it as
So you're just like 6 seconds, 6 fucking seconds.
1, 2. I take it as like a pseudo truth, but
Yeah.
for me, it really depends on the day. There are some days I'm very much so better at listening than others. There are other days where somebody says something and I am just like, I got my point ready. I can't wait to wow you with the awesome thing I'm going to say. And it's just like another fucking sentence. And, yeah, it's something that you kind of try to be
Have my thought.
self-aware about. What'd you say?
I said I have my thought.
Oh, you have your thought.
No,
yeah,
keep
we
going.
should have an episode where we put like a little bell next
Just
to
a
us.
ding.
And ding, like I know what
Before
I'm
you
going to
started
say.
talking, I was like, I got a subject.
Yeah. As soon as the sentence is said, ding.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it's your turn now. Yeah. So what I was getting at, ding. Okay,
Right.
I guess it's your turn now.
Oh God, dude, people would tune out so fucking fast. It'd be the worst episode.
But yeah, it's one of those things that I kind of go about life and try. I suck at it. Absolutely suck at it until now. Really talking about it, I'm going to try to be a little bit more self-aware of that and kind of go like, hey, hear them out first, and then if you have to take a couple seconds at the end of their sentence, find what you're going to say.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's a better way of going about it than going, oh yeah, I know what I'm going to talk about, and then elevator music playing as you stare into their eyes and go, done? Okay. So what I was going to say.
Dude, I hate when like things like this are brought up, because now that's all that's going through my head. Like as you were talking, I'm listening, but I
know
was,
what you're going to say.
as I started listening more, I started losing one of the thoughts, because there was 2.
No.
And I was just like, okay, this what I'm talking about now is one where it's just like some things some people say resonate with me hard. I mean like hard. Like one the story I explained of the guy whose daughter's quince that we filmed. How he was like, everybody is eye to eye. I think about that all day, every day. It's fucking annoying.
Or the motion and action thing.
Motion and action is another one. And now like, oh, you stop listening after 5 seconds and that's all that's going through my head, because literally as you started talking, I got maybe a half a second in, and I was like, dude, it's so weird that like humans don't stretch like dogs. like you and I both stretched, and I thought about that happened 5 minutes ago, and I was like, I just really want to say it, like just holding it back, like fucking,
because if I don't, it's gonna go away, and what would I do without that one thought that I just had in half a second?
like just the fact that It was another thing that resonated with me was in college, which is so weird to say. Like,
You say
back
that
when I was in
every
college.
time you say college. You go
Because it's-
back when I was in college, and you go, look at me saying back when I was in college. I was a college boy.
Back when I was in college. Now that I'm 25, it's not so weird. I think it was weird to say that when I was like 22. I'm like, what the fuck am I even saying that for? I was in health class, and the professor was talking about, he's like, stretching is extremely important. And no one in the class are like, okay, who gives a fuck? Like, especially me, who is an extremely stiff person.
Bunch of stiff millennials like, shut up, old man.
Shut up, no.
You limber
Let me
bitch.
get out of my seat.
I
And so
I'm walking around like a fucking G.I. Joe action figure.
he said that it didn't resonate with anybody. And he is like, I can see clearly, like, I'm not getting through to you guys. He said, what's the first thing an animal does when it wakes up? And immediately everyone went, oh, like it just, because they don't wake up and start walking. They wake up and they fucking, the dogs do the
downward dog.
And then they kick out their back legs. And then some of them will kick out their legs and then they'll start walking because that's what they need to do.
And meanwhile, humans are like, son of a bitch. And just roll out.
I gotta go to work again. It's fucking 1 minute until I gotta get out of bed. And then they just, and here we are like stretching, and we're not even really, I hope as I'm saying this, people are stretching like you are right now.
One in right now, partner.
One of my favorite things to do when you're stretching is just fucking letting out the highest pitched noise that you can. Like, I'll be in my room alone.
Mariah Carey whistle rings through the rural household.
I'll be in my room alone. I'm not trying to get anybody's attention, but I'm just like, ooh, fuck.
Nick, you watching hentai?
Well, oh God, no.
It's like that one video. It's an old Twitter meme of like the yoga class, and someone's dressed up as the Grinch in the background.
Oh yeah,
and they're just like, "No, let it all out." And it's like,
that's what it feels like.
That's the equivalent to the point.
But yeah, it's now it's gonna sit in my head about all the things that I want to talk about.
One point I do want to get at, because one thing that we never really talk about when we do these one-on-ones is current events or like what's relevant now. We'll bring up stuff here and there, but we talk about concepts and stuff. Yeah. But no, there's one I really want to talk about, which is Ricky.
No, dude, I want to just
no. You want to just dwell over philosophical concepts?
Ooh, joking.
Whoa, that jaw pop! Oh my god!
Enjoy that, everyone.
So one of the ones I wanted to talk, actually specifically to you about, is Ricky Gervais and that entire.
Say his last name again.
Gervais.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
And that entire like monologue he went on before the award show.
I've watched it so many times.
It was beautiful.
So many times, being like 3 or 4. It was so good.
It was amazing. It made me go back and watch some of his stand-up because like I forgot how much I love him. Yeah. I've watched him not do stand-up, but like talk on certain subjects. And dude is, he gets it.
Do you know what that did for his ticket sales?
Oh, I can't imagine.
Did you read into that at all?
No, I didn't.
It was a highlight on Twitter, which is why.
Oh. I saw that. It was for the Golden Globes, right? I always mix them up.
Yes.
I saw that like there was a news article posted on Twitter, and it was like the Golden Globes Ricky Gervais speech was so successful that they want him back on again. And he quoted the article and said, "Never gonna happen."
No, that's upsetting. Well, I mean, it's not upsetting. You go out with a bang, and you have to know, like that's
where you leave it.
I forgot what the article was, so I don't want to like misquote this at all. But basically, he either sold out 3 million or 30 million tickets like that after that speech. It was just like stadium shit was being sold out, and like dude, I think Netflix stuff was like at an all-time high for him. I don't fucking. It was some crazy number
when he was like
skyrocketed.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised at all. And when he's like, thank your agent, thank your God, get your award, and get the fuck off. Like, oh my God. I was like, if I was there, I'd be giving a standing ovation, dude.
Such a wonderful, like, it makes you realize, okay, love Tom Hanks, love him. But his facial expressions, maybe he was bothered because it was a little over the top for him.
So it turned me off because I was like, are you disagreeing with what he's saying right now? Because this shit's facts.
At first.
But it could just him be cringing at the social awkwardness of the room.
I don't think he was really cringing as much as he was like, okay, for example, because did you watch Tom Hanks give his little speech?
No.
It's very heart-touching.
Mm-hmm.
Heartwarming, heart-touching, whatever the fuck. Like, little bit of like a tearjerker just because he was so grateful for his wife. Nothing, and his family in general.
Yeah.
Nothing really past that. Just a wonderful fucking dude. So I think he's just a very genuine person and doesn't like probably the over extreme of which obviously we do. Ricky Gervais is fucking funny with everything that he said, whereas Tom Hanks probably doesn't care for that kind of stuff, but I could just be speaking out of my fucking ass. It's just what I'm getting at from the two things that I saw.
Tom Hanks looked pretty appalled to me.
Fuck you. Fuck you. So, the whole thing of him, Ricky Gervais just going off the way he did. Dude, what he said about Leonardo DiCaprio.
That shit was fucking hilarious.
Saying that by the
end of this
the movie, his date would be too old for him. And the camera went to Leonardo DiCaprio and he was busting up. I'm like, see, that is how you react properly. Yep. I don't know his name as an actor. I should actually look him up. He was in Game of Thrones, but he was the old man that the camera kept going back to.
The one sitting by De Niro?
No, that was
the director. That was that director. I can't think of his name.
Scorsese.
Yeah, Scorsese.
Yeah. No, it was the old. What the fuck is that season where they have?
If
religious
ISIS
season.
opened up a streaming service, you'd be calling your agents.
Yeah. But that actor was just not fucking pleased. He was. You can just see it in his face. Like he just wanted him to get off the stage. I love when they went over to Chris. Which Chris is that? I can't remember his fucking name. Captain America.
Evans?
Chris Evans. When they went to him after, I think Ricky Gervais was talking about the actress Gwyneth Paltrow, or was he going for someone else? Talking about licking her own pussy.
Oh yeah.
And then coughing up a hairball, and it goes to Chris Evans, and he's just like, "What the fuck,
dude?"
I thought the whole thing was perfect. I thought no one else could have done better than he did.
Yeah, he just went up there and murdered it. And I love his point where he was just like, you don't get to preach your politics to people. You don't get to tell people.
You know jack shit about the world.
Yeah, and it's like, it's true because not only do these people like kind of like surround their world with acting and with Hollywood, so they're cut off from the real world. They're also like, a lot of them are like just super high class. They don't have like a good idea of what the average person's life is anymore,
right?
If they ever lived it in the first place. And like people forget that they're just fucking actors.
Yeah.
They aren't like gods of knowledge. They are just regular people with a cool job. They don't have a more rounded, more like put together political opinion of you just guaranteed because they're on TV. Some of them probably do because they have more experience in the world with different people because they utilize their position. But a lot of them probably don't.
Yeah.
And when people are like, and that's what it bothers me when like for instance, last political election when Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are going back and forth, and Hillary Clinton was bringing out like all these celebrities at her like rallies, I was like really, really fucking irritated because if that endorsement by Beyonce is enough for you to then go want to vote for Hillary Clinton, what the fuck does Beyonce know about politics?
The fucking Kanye thing.
Yeah,
what does
like,
Lady Gaga know about?
I like some of the Gaga music. What the fuck does she know about cameras? That's
so good.
It's literally that. It's like Beyonce probably would do just as good, if not worse, than you or I on a political quiz.
Maybe.
Like
we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. And therefore you can't just go and be like, oh, this is a celebrity that I adore their work, therefore I should adore their political stance or their affiliation.
Yeah.
It's like, no, dude, like do not let these fucking like silver spoon people on the screen tell you what to think when their life is nothing like yours.
I'm glad I adopted that thought early on in my life where like I don't really care for Kanye West as a person. Does he make good music? Well, in my head used to, and I haven't listened to his new album, but I can separate those things. You know,
Yeah, me
I
too.
don't necessarily like him, but I can say his music's good. Will I support it? Probably not, because I don't necessarily like him, just from what I know on the news and what's reported and all that shit. So it's not even probably a fair assessment of the guy. But
Probably not.
but just having that separation in understanding. What the fuck was that?
I don't know.
Cool. Anyway, I just want to say his name is Jonathan Pryce, was the old man that they kept going back to.
Okay.
It's an actor, and he was
Gotcha.
just not pleased with the entire thing at all.
Yeah, I'm sure it rubbed some people the wrong way. And that was so funny when it was like, you made a joke about Jeffrey Epstein not killing himself. And then people were like, oh, and he goes, I get it. You were his friends.
He's like, I didn't care. I didn't care. You can fuck yourself. I'm like, that's so good.
Dude, yeah.
Oh no, he was saying, shut up, I don't care. And they'd take a drink. And the best part was, I think they're supposed to have like wine or water or something classy.
Yeah, like
and he had a
whiskey
fucking,
or something.
Yeah, it had just a glass of either
Of
beer or
alcohol.
liquor, and it was just like, he didn't give a shit. I
Yeah,
loved
he
it.
might as well have gone up there with a cigar lit in his mouth and just like, fuck you all.
And then
sit
the
down.
ending being where he was just like, the first award is fucking 3 hours. Oh, God. And he
Yeah.
like announces it, and then he's like, oh, and surprise, it's actors from the telly. And then he names them, and then he just fuck, and he walks off. It's good. It's so good. I have things to do. Is there anything else that you want to wrap on?
No,
Okay.
I think this is solid.
Yeah. Got like close to an hour and a half.
I need sleep. I need to grab.
Yes. Fucking episode.
58.
Oh shit, we still have things we gotta do too.
Yeah. I want to check what episode it is.
I'm pretty sure it's 58. Actually, pretty positive. I'd put $1,000 on that.
58.
Nice. Cool. Said it before you did. I was like, I'm gonna put $1,000 on that. I was hoping that you would say it in the middle of it, so I could be like, never mind. But okay, thank you, everybody. It's 58. Eventually, maybe at like 100, we'll just stop. Like not recording. Stop talking.
Stop making
Yeah, we're
episodes.
just gonna stop the podcast in general. Stop paying attention to the number. Maybe, depending. I don't know. We're eventually gonna get lost. Or maybe it'll just be some fucking number that we don't like. Episode 247. Why? Oh, thank you for listening to episode 247.
One day.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
going to get there.
Thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it.
52 a year.
Yeah. About.
Well, yeah,
Without any
about-
extras.
Right. Wild. Sorry.
Can I close it out now?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. And hope you have a great week.
Bye.
Wait.
Oh, that was a good call. You guys thought I wasn't going to say it. Go fuck yourself.
Bye.